Being out here where we are surrounded by water, I'm taken by its timelessness. Water is our future and our past, bow to stern. There is a great energy, both peaceful and powerful, in an element that can greet even time as its equal.
While that entry was technically before the semester started, it almost prophetically set the tone for what would encompass my practice of meditation and movement this semester. Time and its relationship to my surroundings has taken on new meaning. Things that I would have often taken for granted became scarce resources, even as simple as the ability to stand up and turn around without being cautious and thinking carefully about it. So as I look back over my journal, I wanted to just share a few reflections from points along the way that I feel capture the essence of what the practice has been for me these past few months.
The quantity of time is something we measure in days, weeks, months, and years. The quality of time is something we measure in decibels, deep breaths, rolling waves, and the energy from the souls that surround us.
When this first made it into my journal in late January, I was still surfing on the thrill of being at sea for a few days. Water was still very much the image tied to most things in my head. It honestly still is, but as is often the case, my surroundings have balanced my thoughts with images from the here and the now, taking inventory of the present. At that point, COVID-19 was something that was happening far out on other shores. There was talk of infections reaching the United States here, but the idea of tens of thousands of deaths was far from our minds, let alone weeks of solitude and social silence. This entry came for me out of a deliberate practice to find silence, both internally with my own thoughts, as well as in the context of the world around me. It was also in February that my current symptoms really presented in a strong way. In retrospect, they had been popping up for several months, but were so random and unconnected that they went largely unnoticed. By the end of February, they were really getting in my way. Following is something I wrote in the journal in an attempt to remind myself of my own capacity for wholeness. The final thought of that is a very familiar Trinitarian perspective of self that I've been adopting. And the final phrase is one that appears often in my journal as I remind myself of this image of wholeness.
Sometimes I get angry at my body, so my soul and my spirit comfort me. Sometimes I get impatient with my soul, so my spirit and my body quiet me down. Sometimes I get frustrated with my spirit, so my body and soul reason with me. Sometimes the pieces of me all switch places. Comfort, quiet, and reason all come from new angles. Sometimes, just sometimes, my body dances with my spirit to the music of my soul. That's when I feel whole.
On the 8th of March, I was the guest preacher at First Presbyterian Church in Columbus, Indiana. And that was also the first Sunday we heard reports of churches closing in Washington State, and Seattle in particular. We would have one more Sunday together in Bloomington at University Baptist before everything in our world would begin to change. Normal became something people longed for, but there was also a growing narrative around the idea that going back to the way things were may not be the best option for us. And it was that line of thought that prompted this journal entry, which I also adapted later into an online sermon.
When things go back to normal, I hope I will remember that stillness is still an option. That I remember what it's like to start my day more slowly, with more contemplation, and more deliberate attention to my immediate surroundings before I jump into the hustle and bustle of the day. That I will choose to the best of my ability to not let the demands of a once again noisy world dictate the pace of my heart and soul. I hope I will choose to wait before God in the spirit of stillness and silence.
As the pandemic and the resulting quarantine pressed on through April, my own health became more and more of a challenge. Appointments with specialists keep getting pushed back, and there seems to be more and more setbacks than progress. After a fall landed me in the ER a few weeks ago, and I was diagnosed with yet another concussion, I really felt hope slipping away. I was amazed, though, that in the absence of hope, in the face of uncertainty, peace could also be present. In that state of mind, resigned to whatever lay ahead for my body, I wrote what I called this auto requiem, making space for soul and spirit along the way. If earth recalls this body, I'll neither mourn nor protest, but will allow it to return to dust with a song and this bequest. That soul and spirit shall linger in their own cosmic dance until the divine singer gives body a second chance. As I went back over this, I noticed, and you may have noticed as well, that whether it's in my journal or in my own active thoughts in my head, it's difficult for me to not think of my own life as a series of collected memes and moments. Even as a child, I remember thinking of events in my life as if from the perspective of a movie director, scripting the outcome and choreographing the events to my liking, complete with the appropriate music score and soundtrack. As I move into this summer, what is hopefully a season of both rest and resolve, one of my aims is to live more organically, to live life as it happens, not as I would happen to live it. As challenging as this semester of yoga and spirituality has been for me in many ways, I also have no doubt in my mind that it was the class that I needed at the time that I needed it. And I look forward to continuing that journey over not only over the next few semesters and classes, but in the lifetime of change that they're going to precipitate. So now, for one last time this semester, the light in me sees and honors the light in you. Namaste.